I don't know. Can people hear me this week? We're gonna have a week without a technical. No, muted. Pete 70 says you're muted. So, all right. I'm not muted this week. Or let me know in the chat if I am muted. So I'm really looking forward to this. Anyone who watched the early debates will recognise.
I can't hear anyone.
Oh, right, Creaky's. Well, we're cracking on mute, Creaky. We can hear him. I know you can't, but he's talking to us. Anyone who watched the first few debates will recognise. I'm trying to figure out which way it is. In the bottom right hand of the screen, we have Josh the Cat back. Have I pronounced that right? Is it Lekach? How's that pronounced?
However, yeah, Lekach is just easier.
So
that's why.
The video. I know the chat can't hear me, but can you guys in the call hear me?
We can hear you, Creaky. We're getting messages.
I can't hear anything.
Okay.
This
I'll speak to you on the chat at the same time. If you're watching and getting really confused, Creaky's talking to us because he's having a technical issue. All right. So if I stop and reply to someone, I'm replying to Creaky. At the minute, we're going to fly solo a little bit. Yeah. So Josh debated Plain or Walk, and what I thought was a really well managed discussion on abortion, pro or against abortion.
I don't know why nobody can hear me and why I can't hear anyone.
Below me, we have Tjump, who's got a fantastic.
The side chat can hear me.
Let them introduce themselves. So, Tjump, do you want to introduce yourself first? And I'll get your link to your channel in your fired out in the chat. I can't stop laughing because I can hear Creaky in the background. Sorry, crack on, Tjump.
Yeah, let's hope you guys can hear us, the speakers, during the debate. That would be really uncomfortable if we're all muted and all you can hear is cats, and that'd be just a great debate. It'd be great. I'm Tjump. I do debates with scholars usually from around the world on usually just
Also, I am.
So there's no sound anywhere. Can the side chat hear me speaking? Because it's all registered my end. Everyone else is muted. Right, one sec. Right, I can hear you all now. Please tell me the side chat. This is stressing me out. Please, can just somebody make a noise? You could have been, the three of you could have just been talking about me and how terrible a live streamer I am, and I would be none the wiser.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Now I'm completely confused. Did people hear what I said?
Nobody could hear anything apart from me clicking my mouse, I'm afraid.
No, we heard you. Both of you.
Yeah, you guys could because we're in the Zoom call, but the audience didn't hear any of what was just said.
Okay.
So, just to be clear, the audience didn't hear the introduction and the shilling out of Josh and Tjump.
No, nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Well, we must start there because the people that come onto this channel to debate do it for free, okay? And they've all got something to offer. So I really do want to kind of shill out what they've got before we start.
Wait, just to check, they can hear us now, right?
Yeah, give us a thumbs up in the side chat if you can hear myself, Catz, and the guys. Oh, please give me some thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're good now.
Okay, so very, very quickly then. If you've seen the earlier debates, you'll be familiar with Josh Lekach, who's in the bottom opposite corner to me. He debated Play Our Walk not so long ago. Josh, I will let you introduce yourself again, and while you're doing that, I will be spamming your podcast link in the chat.
Right, I'm gonna try to do this verbatim. No, actually, I'm not. I don't remember what the fuck I said. I'm Josh Lekach. I have a show called Wrong Opinion. It's on Patreon. I started it in May. It's been growing pretty well. I'm not a scholar. I remember saying that. I am not a scholar, and Tjump says he has debated scholars and all these interesting people. So, and then I also said I'm on the bottom of the totem pole of those kinds of people. But
and then I said,
nonetheless,
you're not even close. Cause,
yeah, I'm kind of close.
Look up "Godless Girl," and then you'll know. You'll not even close.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm on the pro-Trump side. I think he's a great president. I do think he's flawed, like all humans are flawed. And I consider myself to be a paleo-conservative. I used to be pretty libertarian, and around 5-6 years ago, I started to shift more right. As I've gotten older, that's kind of what's been happening. And so I understand where the left is coming from. I used to share their same concerns and beliefs. So it's not like I'm coming at this as a dogmatic zealot. I'm not a religious extremist or anything like that. I look at these things purely in a philosophical lens. So I think that's kind of what I said before.
Brilliant. I'm just going to clear something up in the chat. Someone just said it's Crafty Keeler, one of our most active mods on the internet. It's just said, has he just got a patron? The patron is the podcast, isn't it? You access your podcast through the patron. I'm right there, aren't I?
Yeah, so when I launched it, it was just audio, and then the more people that started to sub, the better quality it got. So I release audio and vidcasts. I do 2 to 3 shows a week. And yeah, so it's on the Patreon.
Cool. And I think I said before, I don't know if people could hear me, that you did give me a promo video for that, which I've tweeted out. So I'll put that link to the tweet where the promo video is on in here during the debate as well. Tjump, off you go. Introduce yourself again. And
I am Groot. I am Tjump. I do a YouTube channel called youtube.com/Tjump, where I debate usually stuff about the existence of God. I invite on academics and professors from around the world. Also do debates on flat earthers and other philosophy stuff. Check it out.
Well, and give you money. And give you money. Remember you said
please give me money.
Yeah.
Good.
Right, fantastic. Creaky, you back in the action now?
I'm traumatized. I'm getting reports coming in that my mic sounds all over the place. You all sound fine, but I'm too scared to touch anything, so I'm just going to move my mic a little bit further away from my mouth.
Okay.
So
sounds
go on without me.
Right. Well, again, I don't know if people heard me say this before or not, but I'm looking forward to this because it gives us a chance to hear a debate where we're not just focusing on the meme side of Trump. We're actually going to be looking at impact on economy, crime, employment, those kind of things, rather than just the funny side that I love to laugh at. Look, we're going to have a chance to hear the more meaty side as well. And I'm very ignorant when it comes to American politics. I don't know anything, so I'm hoping to learn a lot. Tjump, you won the toss. You're going to just open us up, so to speak. Off you go.
So Trump has done a lot of decent things as president, not intentionally, but just because he's just been giving money to rich people, and that always usually has a good impact on the economy. He's had about 6.7 million jobs, which is about 1.5 million less than Obama, just to put that out there. Employment fell to about the lowest it's been in half a century. Economy grew slower than Trump promised, at a rate of 2.1. Stock prices hit a record high, which is not really a surprise since he's just giving money to rich people as much as he can. Household income grew a little bit. That wasn't bad. Poverty decreased a little bit. Paychecks grew by about 2.5% after inflation. Home prices reached record levels. Home ownership increased. The number of people lacking health insurance rose by 2 million. So 2 million more people are now off health insurance. That's not a good thing. The federal deficit soared, adding $2.8 trillion to the national debt. So even though he's done some good things, the reason these things happened was because he just spent a shit ton of money, which is really bad for the future. The difference between the Trump administration and the Obama administration is that Trump inherited the economy undergoing its longest sustained expansion, whereas Obama inherited it in a recession. So much of the positive things can be attributed to actually Obama and his policies and how it guided the economy to where it is today, not to actual Trump's policies. So many of the things I just listed, it's hard to really measure how much of that has anything to do with Trump and how much of it has to do with the past administration, because many of those factors have to do with a conglomerate effect over many years, resulting in the positive impacts we see today. The Trump tax cuts won't stimulate the economy enough to make up for the lost tax revenue. According to the Laffer curve, tax cuts only do what the rates were above 50%. It worked during the Reagan administration, but the highest tax rate was about 70% during the Reagan administration. So Trump's tax cuts will not stimulate the economy, as quoted from the Tax Foundation of the Federal Income Reserve tax rates. The problem with everything I just listed is that Trump's cavalier attitude towards the national debt has significantly terrible consequences to the future. He said that he was going to borrow, knowing that if the economy crashed, you could just make a deal, to quote his statement, and the United States would never default because you could just print money. Those are huge red flags for an economist, because that's exactly what Venezuela is doing. And so we can see that kind of an economic policy is really risky, and we should not think that's a good idea, the way he's managing the economy. The Trump thinks about the national debt like he does his personal debt. Like a 2014 Fortune magazine analysis revealed that Trump's business is about $1.1 billion in debt. That includes $800 million owed in like 5 properties. The Trump Tower, 40 Wall Street, whatever, is included in that debt trap. But these properties are easily paid for. You can pay for they earn enough money to pay their interest on the interest payments, so that you can regulate the debt overall. So it's overall profitable to do that. But government debt is different. The World Bank compares countries based on their total debt to gross domestic product ratio. It considers a country to be in trouble if their ratio is greater than like 77%. The U.S. debt to GDP ratio is 108%. That's 23 trillion of U.S. debt as the economy, as divided by the 21 trillion in nominal GDP. So this is a big problem that's going to hit the economy hard. On September 8th, 2017, Trump signed a bill increasing the debt ceiling. Later that day, the debt exceeded 20 trillion for the first time in U.S. history. Trump signed a bill suspending the debt ceiling until March 1st in 2019, which caused the debt ceiling to raise to about 22 trillion, which is, again, this is very bad. Trump suspended the debt ceiling until after the 2020 presidential election, which is very worrying considering this is his goal about being reelected. The debt soon rose to about 23 trillion, and Trump has overseen the fastest increase in the debt of any president. So the fact that he's willing to spend this much money to have these effects that he's seen is extremely concerning. So there are definitely positive effects he's having, but it's all because he's just hemorrhaging money left and right in every possible way and doesn't have an understanding of the impact this is going to have on the economy. Now, this isn't to mention the biggest issues that Trump has. Like, there's lots of other things I could talk about, like xenophobia, white supremacy, racism, his public statements and tweets, his lies, all of the factual inaccuracies he's stated, his collusion with Russia, his failures in Trump administration where he's just firing people who he disagrees with all the time, and his Trump family business ties where his businesses are just making tons of money based off of his use of employing them in his public role, which should be illegal at least. But none of that really matters. What really matters is his policies. What are the policies he's put into place that are just terrible policies that damage everything about the democratic system? Those are the things that we should really assess to decide whether Trump is a good president or a bad president, or whether or not we should elect him again or not. Starting off January 24th, 2017, Donald Trump barred all employees of the Environmental Protection Agency from posting on social media or speaking with reporters about their work. This was an attempt to stifle any type of dissenting comments about like climate change, which he actually later banned the usage of the word climate change in the EPA because it's against his narrative. This kind of policy of banning certain words because it's inconvenient to your narrative is the same kind of thing China and Russia do in their governments. China banned the word Winnie the Pooh and Falun Gong because those are constantly insults levied against the Chinese government, that their president looks like Winnie the Pooh, and Falun Gong is a religious organization they detest. So banning words that are against your policy idea is a common tactic of fascist regimes to stifle dissent, and Trump has employed these same tactics with similar policies as China, which is extremely concerning. Following on his campaign promise, Donald Trump to crack down on immigration, Donald Trump signed an executive order to bolster the U.S. Department's deportation force and direct construction of the wall on the Mexico border. This executive order expanded the definition of priority for deportation to include charged with a criminal offense, which means people who were just suspected of a criminal offense and haven't been found guilty in a court of law can just be deported just immediately for that reason, which is horribly immoral. In a rollback era of Obama era protections, the White House withdrew the mercury effluent rule, which regulated the safe use of disposal of mercury in American dental offices. The Natural Resource Defense Council estimates that the repeal would discharge 5 tons of neurotoxic substance into water each year. Even trace amounts of mercury can harm brain function and damage the human nervous system, particularly in pregnant women. So he's destroying the economy in order for profit, which can damage predominantly poor people and minorities, just killing them outright and causing severe mental damage because of profit. This is really not a good way for the president to go.
Just 2 minutes left.
Okay, so Trump and the House Republicans rolled back Obama-era regulations that required oil companies to provide purchasing information when buying minerals from foreign governments, concerned that oil companies would purchase from corrupt governments and support regimes that killed many innocent people. And the fact that they removed this policy means that oil companies can now do that when Obama made it illegal to do that. And they had to actually post where they actually were getting their buying stuff from. The Republican-led House administration voted to eliminate the Elections Assistance Commission, which was the only federal agency charged with ensuring voting machines could not be hacked, which is really concerning, considering that's how one of the biggest concerns in the election today is that voting machines can be hacked, in support of Donald Trump, which him getting rid of those protections when he's openly criticizing voting is very confusing, since it's his main campaign issue with the voting machines is that they can be hacked, and he's eliminating the protections to stop them from being hacked. How much time do I got left?
About 40 seconds.
About 40 seconds. So in February 16, 2017, the staff of the United States Department of Agriculture were given a list of blacklisted terms which the agency could no longer use in their scientific research, which includes climate change, weather extremes, reduce greenhouse gases, and build soil organic matter. The Trump government is cracking down on any types of use of scientific knowledge about reality and trying to prevent it from being publicized just because it's damaging to his reputation. He doesn't like it, and it's damaging to his pursuit of money in the economy. So him denying reality and denying science is probably the biggest concern with why we should definitely not want Trump, because it's analogous to Lysenkoism in communist Russia, where if you deny science, it ends up killing millions of people. And as pointed out by Noam Chomsky, Trump is one of the most dangerous people in the world right now because he's destroying the economy, which can cause climate change and kill millions of people. And I'll conclude there.
Fuck.
Thank you very much. Lot to say there. But that's excellent. That's a well-spent 10 minutes. Josh, you've got 10 minutes just to say whatever it is you want to say.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to even do 10 minutes.
That's okay.
I can tell already our styles are completely different. It's I was with him in the beginning. I was with him in the beginning with the amount Trump is spending. There is still elements to my beliefs of libertarianism, where I think that we are spending way too much money. He is right that the future generations of this country are going to have to deal with hyperinflation, I think, from spending way too much money. Obama, for instance, before Trump, Obama spent more money than all the other presidents in history combined. It's nothing. It's not a Republican or Democrat thing. It's just, I think that's kind of what we're going to start seeing from now on, regardless. I think if Trump loses, Biden's going to continue that tradition, that new American tradition of just spending as much money and printing as much money as possible. I think it's a huge mistake. So I'm with him on that. I think that the Obama partook in bailing out companies, and Trump is doing that as well. I think that's bad for everyone. I mean, especially with companies now where you bail them out and we have stagnation. We have stagnation not only in economical growth, but these companies feel like they can do whatever they want because they're going to be bailed out anyways. And I mean, that's why airplanes haven't really changed. We had the Concorde for a second, and then they basically stopped using the Concorde. They canceled that whole thing. So we're kind of stuck in a loop, in a technological loop. Like, yeah, we have advancements where we can talk to each other like this, or have nice iPhones and better internet. But other than that, I mean, the real meaningful things are kind of stuck. So I agree with the spending and the bailout. I think bailouts are a huge mistake. I'm anti-bailout. I think companies need to fail. If they're supposed to fail, they should fail, and another one will take its place. When there's a need for something, something better will take its place. I'm with you on that. With regards to Trump being a xenophobe and a racist and all of that, I think those are heavily exaggerated things by the media. A lot of things are taken out of context. You can edit one sentence he said. It might seem like he said something racist, but literally the next sentence after that, kind of ties everything in together and proves he's not. You even mentioned the time where Trump mocked a disabled reporter. Trump is the interesting thing about Trump is that he is like, if he wasn't born into a rich family, I guarantee you he would have become a stand-up comedian, because he has this comedic timing that even comedians will recognize. Comedians that hate him will recognize it. And I think that he's just this type of comedian that has very few impressions. So he'll just, when he mocks anyone, he does like, oh, it has nothing to do if the person's disabled or not. He's used it on everyone. So I'm with you on the spending, but on the other stuff, I don't know. And then you listed 100 things that, if I had time to maybe do research and pick them apart, maybe I can. Maybe I'll agree with you on some of them. I just don't really know. Our styles are completely different. I'm going to come at this a little bit more on the where we are as a country and what does it mean to have a country, the ethos of the country. If we just indiscriminately let people into this country, does that mean that our country is just by name? It's just the United States, the name? Is it just a flag? Is the flag our logo? Is that all this country is? Why does the whole world want to come here? and should we just have complete open borders? So I'm with Trump more on very, very simple things. I'm for law and order. I'm pro borders. I'm anti-abortion. I think that we need to kind of agree on what does it mean to have a country? Is it worth preserving? And for instance, China. Should we allow for so-called free trade and just ship off our jobs to China because we can't compete with them? Their citizens are slaves. I think that's kind of where I'm going to come at it from. It's just what does it mean to have a country? In Trump acknowledges the China problem. He acknowledges the problem with the censorship with the tech companies. I mean, the fact that Google is more powerful than our whole government is a little bit scary to me. Google is basically God. There was one other thing I was going to say with regards to tech. Yeah, I mean, look, I go back 5 years, I was pretty scared about what the NSA was doing. I think we should pardon Edward Snowden. I think we should pardon Julian Assange. I think the more information we put out, the better. And I used to think NSA was scary. I used to think the CIA was scary. But to me, what's really scary is the amount of power these tech companies have. And at least he addresses that. The Democrats are in bed with these companies. And I mean, to be fair, also a lot of Republicans are. I'm not a Republican. The only time I've ever voted Republican was for Trump, and I will vote for him again. I'm registered as an independent, and I think that should be very clear to the audience. So to kind of recap, our styles are completely different. I'm going at this more of like a philosophical aspect of what does it mean to have a country. And I think Trump is at least addressing certain things that no other politician on both sides they're not touching.
Brilliant. Creaky, are you there?
I'm hanging on. I'm hanging on with the skin of my teeth.
Don't touch that microphone.
I'm not touching anything at all.
Is it anything you've spotted, buddy, that you want to address?
No, so far the side chat is pretty controlled. We have had a super chat come in from JL Warren, but I'm gonna guess that we're gonna stick and with the usual plan and cover the super chats after the debate portion.
What I've done is I've on the community tab. If you're on a mobile phone or a computer, I don't think they work on tablets, but if you go to our community page, you can leave questions for Josh or
new
Tjump
subscriber
as well, that we will endeavour to get through in about an hour's time. So you're both giving yourselves a little bit of an introduction. Josh, you've been on this channel before. You know how it works. We just have a laid-back chat discussion. You know that's how it works. Tjump, I'm sure you've seen it before. You know what we're like. So, I mean, I suppose Tjump, after hearing what Josh has got to say, what do you want to come back with? And we'll just leave it to you now, guys, just to educate us and chat it out between yourselves.
Sure. I actually wanted to say I agree with a lot of the points he made. I think that I'm for merit-based immigration, not open borders, which most Democrats aren't for open borders either. I mean, every Democratic president, Clinton and Obama, both actually built parts of the wall before Trump did. They built more of the wall than Trump did. So neither of them are for open borders. They're actually the only part of the wall that Trump built where there wasn't previously a wall was there's a 5-mile section. That's about it. So all of the walls that have already been built were built by Democrats for the most part. So none of the Democrats are actually for open borders. They're just for promoting the idea of open borders as a virtue signaling for the policies to agree with the Democratic ideal. But they're not actually for open borders. Like, they actually built the wall. They implemented these policies. Secondly, I mean, I agree China is a huge, huge threat, but Trump's just ignorance of how economics works is a bigger threat, because when he started this trade war, he doesn't understand how trade wars work in the political landscape. Any good strategy has to include getting other countries on your side. And if it's just the United States versus China, they're similar sized economies. And so if it's the United States versus China, there's not something China, if it's the United States and the world versus China, then China's going to lose necessarily. But if it's the United States versus China alone, China can match the tariffs or whatever one for one, and essentially it comes out as being an even fight. So Trump's unilateral implementation of the tariffs has essentially done nothing but harm American economies. Whereas if he had worked with other countries, which everyone hates him, so he can't really do that because of his other terrible policies, then he could have actually had a successful impact on imposing tariffs on China. So it's just ignorance of how global economies and governments work together is why he's so ineffective in his means of fighting China, even though we definitely do need to fight China. I'm not sure what he meant by Google being a world force. Google isn't really that powerful. But April 3rd, 2017, Donald Trump signed a bill eliminating rules that would require internet service providers to ask consumer permission before sharing or selling private information. So he's actually giving more power to those big companies, not taking it away, even though he says good things about them, like their monopolies on Twitter. His organization is actually giving them more power. Like, I forget what the Ajit Pai and his bill about I forget what it's called, the internet one, but he's giving them more power, not less power. So if you want people to actually do something about them, you need to hire Democrats like Bernie Sanders, who is actually against the monopoly on Amazon and Google and those kinds of things, not corporate people like Donald Trump who are enforcing their power and giving them more power. So I think all of your points, I agree with all of them, but the way to solve them is the way the Democrats are trying to solve them. And Trump isn't actually an advocate for any of those things, and his policy is actively working against all of those things you mentioned.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned with what is happening with the Democrats. You can't compare first of all, the Democrats in the 90s, like Bill Clinton in the 90s, he basically gave China the keys to the United States. I mean, that's kind of what started it.
What do you mean?
And then we didn't see the.
Sorry. Can you give me a bill, or what kind of bill did he do that with? What example? Can you
No, he expanded trade with China in the early 90s. It's kind of what began shipping off jobs to China. They were kind of nothing before that. In the 80s, they were really nothing. He came in, and that's kind of what. No, I can't give you a specific name. But back to what I was gonna say is, you're doing research.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm not good. My screen is full with just us. I'm not looking anything up while
I've got two screens, so I'm good.
Oh my God, you have the whole thing. So the Democrats of the past are not the Democrats of today. It's almost like they've been hijacked by it is a small minority. If you look at the convention, the Democrats.
Wait, so just to clarify, is Bill Clinton one of the ones from the past or the ones from today? Like, where do you draw the line?
Well, he's a hybrid. I think he's a hybrid, because if a lot of his policies if you hear a lot of his speeches, they sound very similar to speeches Trump has given. Granted, Bill Clinton's a better speaker, but you know, I don't think most of these people, and again on both sides, I don't really think these people have a personal constitution. I think they kind of go with what the loud minority kind of projects. If you look at the DNC from last week. Sure, maybe in secret, the politicians are you know, the Democratic politicians are of the past, where they're for borders, they're for certain things, but it seems like they keep on capitulating to the mob, the extreme left, the people who are pro censorship, the people who are pro canceling. That's what it seems like is happening. So first of all, Joe Biden.
Just to clarify, are they doing that in policies, or are they just doing that on TV to virtue signal to get votes? Because I haven't seen any policies that actually acquiesce to the far left in that sense. They're not doing any. They're not like reparations is completely unworkable. None of them are supporting reparations. Like even Joe Biden, most of his policies, he was pro wall. He's pro borders. I don't think any of that's changed. He's not trying to open borders or open anything like that. He does acquiesce to the mob to virtue signal to get votes, but none of the policies he's suggesting are actually supporting the far left in any way. Bernie Sanders was the most far left of the Democratic candidates.
Yeah, my main concern is that Joe Biden is a Trojan horse candidate. He's a vessel. He's dead and he doesn't know it. And they can pass anything they want through him. I don't think he's really fully there. I think that you know, I think that it's a little worrisome to me that the loud minority doesn't just have a seat at the table. They are the table now. I mean, you know, maybe after the election, regardless of whoever wins, things die down a little bit, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. We're in an it's like acceleration. We're in a form of we're on like a roller coaster, regardless of what side you're on. It does seem like we're on some sort of roller coaster that is getting faster and faster.
Well, I actually get the opposite impression, because if you wanted a Democratic president who you could pass whatever you wanted with, Bernie Sanders would be the one to go with. It seems like Joe Biden is the staple copy-paste Democrat that everyone wants, because he's not going to change anything. They're going to do the exact same thing they've always been doing. And it's not about, the far left isn't going to get anything done, because no one in the Senate is really far left. They're all just staple politicians to do the staple politician stuff. We're not going to get like universal health care from Joe Biden like we would have from Bernie Sanders. We're not going to get a universal basic income like we would have from Yang. We're not going to get anything like the forgiveness of all of the debt, of student debt, like we would with Bernie Sanders. Biden has no policies that are actually unique or change anything. He's just the staple politician. He's just the Donald Trump orange man bad politician who's just a generic Democrat. So it seems like the Democrats are just electing the same Democratic policy they've always had and changing nothing. It's not like they're acquiescing to the far left. They're just using the far left for virtue signaling purposes. I don't see anything that they're going to try to do to actually pass any kind of extreme legislation. They're going to do the exact same stuff they've always done, which is essentially nothing. Like I don't understand where you get this idea that they're going to start passing this extreme leftist organization policy when everything they're doing is exactly the same as all they've been doing in the past.
I don't know. I think at some point the virtue signaling becomes reality. They keep on bending the knee to literally everything that is happening.
Can you give any examples?
Yeah, I mean, the funding of BLM, for example. I think that BLM is a domestic terrorist organization. It's not that the certain politicians are funding those organizations, but they keep on capitulating to BLM. BLM is the most liked and most powerful organization in the country today.
What do you mean because all I know has happened is that BLM was invited to talk to Hillary Clinton and other politicians, but they've done nothing. Like they have influenced no policies. They've done nothing to actually acquiesce to their goals. Like BLM hasn't essentially accomplished anything. They're just a loud virtue signaling force that government politicians can get behind to get more votes. But I've seen them affect nothing in politics at all. Like essentially, if you try to look at what BLM has accomplished, it's extremely little, especially in the terms of politics.
Can I ask you a question here? Can I just interject with a question? Is that okay? Yeah. Just talking about the virtual signaling, because I think, and I don't know anything about politics, but you know, if you're saying that it's a lot of virtual signaling without any kind of like legislation to back it up, and this, I'll start with this one to Josh, and then you can answer it maybe afterwards, Tjump. But doesn't virtue signaling from high-level politicians sort of affect how the population, the voters behave, and still create some kind of cultural change, even if it's not backed up by legislation? Would you say there's like a harmful side of virtual signaling that way? Feel free to tell me I'm full of shit because I don't know what I'm talking about. But what do you think, Josh, with that one?
No, I think it does, and I think that sure, maybe for now there aren't any policies. I don't want to take a chance on that. And I think that what I'm more worried about right now, like, yes, like I said before, I agree with you. The spending is out of control, but that's with all of them. That's with politicians in general. I think that we got to get out of that mindset. And I think that people should start paying attention to that a little bit more, on both sides. But I'm a little bit more worried about culture. So like in the debate you had me before about abortion, the fact that we treat abortion as something that is, it's anything but how we see ourselves as humans is a little bit disturbing to me. How sterile we look at it a little bit too sterilely, so I'm way more worried about where we are as a culture. so for now, fine. BLM hasn't passed any legislation, but BLM has caused major damage. And it's not just in, like, let's just say Ferguson 5 years ago, or it was an isolated incident. It's bled everywhere. I live in Los Angeles. There was riots 3 blocks away from me. And it's getting worse and worse. We look at what's happening in Kenosha, Wisconsin right now. It's a little bit different than what's happening in Portland, because at least in Wisconsin, people have guns. So for me, I'm a little bit more concerned with where we are as a culture than where we are with policy or whatever. You know, Tjump seems like he's way more versed than I am with regards to specific policy. I'm going to admit I'm definitely not. I look at things a little bit differently. Like, as a libertarian, I was very concerned. I still am with the war on drugs and taxes, the IRS, the how big the government has gotten, the amount of regulations we have, all of these things. But when you talk to the average person, that's a losing battle. Their eyes gloss over when you mention that kind of stuff. And I think it's a lot more persuasive. And this is what Trump does really well, when you come at things more with the lens of culture. And we have seen the divide. The divide is what worries me the most, because before, at least, we can have an argument with, for instance, healthcare, right? And if Tjump and I had a whole debate on healthcare, it wouldn't devolve into him calling me a racist. I'm not saying that's what he would do now. Obviously, I could tell. Huh?
You dirty racist.
Yeah, no. But the average conversation now devolves to that. It's amazing how quickly it shifts to you're a racist. And it's because the media hates Trump so much. And by the way, the media created Trump. They created Trump. They pretend like they hate him. But look, trust me, everyone at CNN will secretly vote for Trump, because they would die if they had a Biden presidency. No one would watch. They like, it's like clickbait. They like the clickbait, and they need him. They created him. I mean, look, I'm very worried where we are with how divided we are. I sometimes think, what's the end game? Like, where are we going to head? It looks like we're more divided than we were during the Civil War era. You know, I mean, like, the videos coming out of Kenosha, Wisconsin last night were really, really gruesome shit. That I'm like, oh, okay, this is the beginning of a race war. Great. So in that sense, BLM is way more impactful than any policy could ever accomplish.
There's a couple things I wanted to bring up there. One is the government spending. Like, if you just look at just Google U.S. federal government size measured by spending, you'll see that the Democrats are all pretty much straight. They have a pretty much stable spending, and the big jumps are all Republican. So Reagan, Bush, they're the ones who have the big, huge jumps. Obama definitely spent a lot, but he was in a recession, so that's why he had to spend a lot, because he had to bail out the banks, which was his choice. And I don't know, I definitely don't agree with it, but it did save the economy to some extent. So I can understand Obama's massive spending. But again, if you just look at all of the ones, if you agree spending is bad, looking at all the past Democrats, they're the ones who don't do the spending. The spending all comes from the Republicans. So I mean, I agree, spending is bad, but the ones who don't do the spending are the Democrats. I mean, go for it.
Oh yeah, just before you move on, the older I've gotten, the more I realize Reagan sucked. He didn't know what the Cold War was about. It was about ideas, not building weapons. And I think that Bush Jr. especially was one of the worst presidents of all time. I'm no fan of Obama, but Bush was a disaster. I'm not a Republican. I'm definitely not a Republican.
Libertarian?
Sorry?
You said you were a centrist or libertarian?
When I was younger, I was more libertarian, and I still hold some of those beliefs. I'm anti-war on drugs. I'm anti-war on poverty. I think that if we want to talk about Black Lives Matter, that was the first thing to really destroy black families, to create the very dependent welfare system. So I still have some libertarian beliefs, mainly economically, but yeah, no, now I'm more of a conservative, paleoconservative nationalist, if you will. I don't think that that's a bad word. I think that we got to preserve what this country is. Even for people around the world, this country is very meaningful. a lot of the innovation comes from here. The world depends on it. And yeah, but I'm not a Republican. I am not a fan of most Republicans. And I also, I don't think a lot of them have a backbone. They say certain things and they bend over backwards. They buckle very quickly. You know, I think that's politicians in general.
Yeah, I totally agree with pretty much everything you said, except abortion. I'd love to do a debate with you on abortion sometime. But we're just looking at the past presidents we've had. If we look at the Republicans and we look at the Democrats do less spending. They actually have a decrease in spending from the start of their term to the end of their term, whereas Republicans have an increase in spending from the start of their term to the end of their term. So just looking at the history of spending, wouldn't it be reasonable, if we think spending is bad, to go with the Democrats, since they have a much better history of spending less or decreasing spending as opposed to the Republicans?
No, just because I think that the certain policies, and again, as an example, abortion, I think that those are a lot more. I
just mean on spending, just on the spending issue. Since we look at just spending.
Yeah, but I think that the policies that impact our culture are way more important than the spending. The spending is a major problem. I mean, it really is.
I totally agree. I'm just to clarify. I'm only asking.
But in my opinion, I don't think it's the most important problem. Ask me 5 years ago.
I totally agree with you. I'm just asking. Since if we think spending is important, we're only looking at spending. It seems based on the stats the Democrats are better on spending. Wouldn't you agree with that? And so if we were just going off spending, we should probably go Democrat because they are better on spending if we just look at the stats.
I mean, I can't agree with that just because that's not the only thing. I mean, we
right. I totally agree. I'm just saying just on spending. So if we didn't consider anything else,
I need to see those numbers, but I don't.
Okay.
I really, if it came down to that, I'd just be like, hey, everyone, how about don't vote? Like literally everyone, don't vote for these fucking people. All of them, they all fucking suck. And the reason why I voted for Trump was because I did realize that he is hated by both sides. I actually like that. I do think he's the first third-party candidate we've ever had in office in since the Whig Party. Has the Whig Party ever been in office? I don't know. But have they? But
I think so. I think once a long time ago.
So basically since then, or basically since Calvin Coolidge, who was kind of libertarian, if you think about it, the fact that both of them hate him is kind of important to me. I think that I think that he's doing something right if that. And also, I mean, he has mentioned the military-industrial complex, which hasn't been mentioned in I don't know how long, since Dwight D. Eisenhower mentioned them.
What do you mean? What do you mean mention the military-industrial complex?
How big of a problem it is. Trump has said that he, when he wanted to pull the troops out, they basically didn't let him pull all the troops out. It looked like it seemed like it was a veiled threat.
I'm not quite sure what you mean, because Trump has increased funding in his first term in 2000.
No. Well, no. I'm talking about strictly ending wars. Yeah, I have obviously noticed the increase in spending on military.
Well, to be clear, he's taken 50 in his first term. He added $50 million to spending, or $50 billion to spending, and took it out of science and healthcare. So, I mean, he's for the military-industrial complex. He's definitely tried to do some things.
He's not for nation building, and he's not for. He's the most anti-war president we've had in a very long time. He hasn't started any new wars.
Well, I mean, yeah, neither did Clinton or Obama, I think, except for a few exceptions. But he did, missile launch against Syria, and he's done a couple pretty terrible military things. So I don't really know what you mean by saying he
wiped out ISIS, though.
Well, Russia did that, actually. He didn't, but and also that was mostly Obama. But he did. You do remember he, as a retaliatory attack of the certain assassinations, he did launch attacks against I think it was Syria or Turkey or Syria. He does launch attacks against these people pretty regularly.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about basically starting wars from scratch, and I think that we're ever since the invention of these drones, I think that the way we are going to be fighting wars from now on are very pinpointed. They're they're almost mini proxy battles rather than full-fledged wars. And I mean, yeah.
I mean, that seems like a really selective criterion. If you're only counting, if he starts an entire war from scratch, and if he doesn't do that, well, then he's anti-military establishment. I think that's a really selective criterion to go off of to decide whether or not he's pro or against military usage. I mean, I'd say Obama was probably more against military usage, and he only did it as a necessity, as opposed to like Trump, who's just funding the crap out of the military. It seems based on what I've seen of his policies that he's far more pro-military, even though he may talk like he's against it.
No. Pro-military and anti-military industrial complex is completely different.
All right, yeah, I'm talking about like the financial side, just giving them money, as much money as they want to do whatever they want, kind of a thing.
I mean, the besides borders, I think really a strong military is kind of the only thing government should really be doing.
I mean, I don't disagree that we should have a strong military, but I think our military is stronger than every other military combined right now. And I think we should not be putting funding into it, and we should be putting funding into science and education and environmental protection to try and save lives, whereas he's doing the opposite of that. I think that's pretty clear sign that he is pro-military industrial complex in the funding of the military in that sense. Even if he may not be pro like just starting wars at random, which I mean, I guess I don't think anybody's actually pro starting wars at random, except maybe Bush. So it seems like if I had to compare Trump to any other political candidate, they're all going to be anti-military establishment, especially the Democrats. The Democrats are going to be hugely against it, far more so than Trump is, based on his policies and use of the military.
I don't know. I think that the people are so against Trump right now, and even certain politicians, when they, give speeches and they grandstand, and again, they just might be capitulating to that silent. That loud minority. But it seems like if Trump is let's just say, going to war with Syria full-fledged, it seems like the Hillary people are really pro going to war. Again, I'm not pulling any.
Who in the Hillary people are pro going to war? Because I don't.
No, I'm saying based on what they've said in the media. So if Trump says something, they completely go at it at the opposite direction.
Yeah, the media is stupid. So I grant all the media is sensationalism. They want money. They don't care about truth. They just make crap up for sure. But I want to know about actual policies. Like, who am I electing? I'm not talking about I'm talking about what they've said. I'm not talking about policies. Right, and I'm only interested in like who should we elect? Who should we actually be in power? I don't care. CNN is garbage, and so is MSNBC and Fox. All I care about is who should we be electing, Trump or not Trump? And it seems like the policies, since I agree we should be anti-military establishment, or the military-industrial complex, Biden is better on this than Trump is, just like the Democrats are better on.
Do you really? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah, it's fine.
No, I'm genuinely curious. Do you really think Biden is there? Do you not? I look at him and I think, holy fuck, this guy is a vessel. I don't know what they're gonna try to put through him, because I don't think he's really there. I mean, you even look at him from 10 years ago compared to today. The guy is completely I'm not talking about how he looks. I'm talking about how he acts. He's completely different. When we had 20 or over 20 Democrats running, let me give you an example. Pete Buttigieg, to me, he seemed like a CIA asset, but that's a whole nother thing. But at least he was there, cognitively there. Biden, to me, doesn't seem like he's really there. It seems like
based on what?
Based on when you hear him speak, it doesn't seem like he's a person
lots of
anymore.
Politicians are terrible public speakers, and he has never been a good public speaker. Like Teddy Roosevelt was a terrible public speaker, but he was a great president.
No, but if you look at him from just 10 years ago to today, or even when he left office 4.5 years ago or 4 years ago, he's a completely different person. Do you really think he would last the whole 4 terms?
Yes, he's only 80, so most people, he's probably going to last another 6 to 8 years at least. So, but I don't consider newsreels to be a neurological diagnosis. So if there's actually
his speeches
are not a neurological diagnosis either. Like, so speech impediments are a common thing. It's not about being older. You could be nervous or have eaten something funny or not gotten enough sleep. There's lots of different ways to explain bad at speaking. Like, I do public speaking all the time. You can check some of my debates. There are some terrible misspoken words in my debates. That doesn't mean I'm losing my mind. It just means I made mistakes because I was tired or whatever. So none of that is actually a neurological diagnosis that he's losing his mental faculties. Like if we actually have neurologists and psychologists analyze him, which I think we should do for sure, and we can figure out, is he mentally there, which we can definitely do. There's no restriction here. We're going to find, yeah, he's still there. I don't think that his speech impediments are in any way an indication that he has some kind of neurological impediment that's going to be diagnosed through an actual doctor analysis. I think it's just people cherry pick the speaking things that want to portray him in a bad light so that people don't vote for him. But none of that actually has any relevance to his actual mental state. If you want to know what his actual mental state is, you have to have a doctor actually analyze him, which we should do. I agree. But
what does your
evidence.
gut feeling say, though?
What
is your gut?
So
when you see him,
I mean, most of the time he's speaking normally. Like 90% of his speech is perfectly fine. There's just that like 10% of weird crap he says, which is still less than Trump's weird crap that Trump says. So I mean, I have no more intuition that he is like less intellectually damaged than Trump. I still think Trump is far more intellectually damaged than Biden is, just based off of the way he speaks. But again, I would withhold judgment until it's actually a neurological assessment and not make judgments based off of newsreels and memes.
All right, fair. I was just wondering what you thought. Also curious, is there anyone you liked better that ran?
Yes, like literally everyone. Like I was a fan of Pete Buttigieg. I don't think he was a CIA plant. I think he's a really good politician, staple politician. So he's not like too far to the left, but he's not too far to the right. So he would be a good stable politician. Yang would have been really interesting. He has lots of interesting ideas. I'm definitely a fan of Bernie, but Bernie can't manage money to save his life. I would not trust him with the economy, but he has some great ideas. All of them were better than Biden. Biden is just the cookie cutter copy paste Democrat that's going to accomplish nothing ever. So putting Biden in office, the only benefit to that is that he's not Trump. That is the only benefit to Biden. He is not Trump.
I keep on asking because this is interesting to me. Damn it, and I just forgot. Go ahead. Go ahead. I just had a brain fart. You see, I'm in mental decline.
So yeah, there are a few other things you mentioned. Like you care about the culture. I wanted to know what you meant by that. Like, do you think that Democrats are damaging the culture or something? And you said that BLM has caused damage. Like, what damage have they caused? I'm assuming you mean cultural damage. Could you talk a little bit more about those?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they actually also cause actual property.
Damage?
Huh?
Property damage?
Well, yeah, them along with the Antifa people, and they kind of seem to have become one in certain instances, you know. But the racial divide is absolutely insane. If you even go back to the 80s, it seemed like racism wasn't even a thing in the 80s. You can go back and watch movies with and I keep telling people to watch what was that movie with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, Trading Places?
Yep.
Yeah, love that film.
Yeah, and even in that movie, Dan Aykroyd, which Eddie Murphy probably wrote this, Dan Aykroyd wore blackface, and it was funny. Like, racism wasn't really that major of an issue. Obviously, it exists. Obviously, it will always exist. It's part of human nature. As a society, we decide this is not good. We are under America. We are Americans, and regardless of race, gender, or whatever. But
I mean, I totally agree. I think that the hyper-sensationalism about like blackface or jokes or racist jokes, that's just stupid. Like, that is really dumb. I totally agree with you. But there was definitely real racism in the 80s. Like, it was definitely there, even though it wasn't portrayed. Like,
that's not
redlining in Atlanta was a real thing that definitely happened in the 80s. It was not good. So racism was real in the 80s, even if you didn't see it.
No, but of course it was, and it will always exist. That's my point. But it seems like we weren't back then really walking on eggshells whenever we said anything. And this whole cancel culture, to the extent that it exists today, it has never existed as powerful as it does today. I mean, you can really ruin people's lives forever for something they said 10 years ago. It doesn't seem like the Republicans are really partaking, in conservative-minded people are partaking in that kind of thing. I was talking to someone yesterday, and they said, well, you know, there was the religious right, which back, you know, they were also burning books and all that. And I go, yeah, but it's It's completely different today when you have pretty much all of academia, you have the whole media, most of it, you have the whole entertainment industry and all of tech pretty much on your side, canceling people. That kind of mentality, I think, is what's really damaging. And I think that it's this form of divide and conquer that politicians play. They like doing this. They like keeping people divided. Like I said, I would love to have debates with people about healthcare without being called a racist at the end of it, which it's devolved to that, and that's my main concern more than anything. That's my main concern. I totally agree.
I think that's a great issue that the Democrats and that the social justice warriors have done terribly. We definitely need to stop this cancel culture speech thing where it's, if you say the wrong thing, you get fired. That's terrible. We should definitely apply free speech rules to all of those things. But where do you see the difference between that on the Republican side and the Democratic side? Because the Democrats, neither of them are proposing policies to try and fix this in any way. The Democrats are just essentially playing the partisan role of virtue signaling to agree with it. But they're policy-wise, there's no difference between their actions as far as I can tell. Why do you prefer the Republicans?
Yeah, the problem is that, yes, it's not policy, but it's almost like the culture has superseded policy. Like it doesn't matter. You know, the First Amendment is that the government can't censor you. But if the majority of the population doesn't revere the First Amendment, then it's really meaningless. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So the First Amendment only applies to the government. It doesn't apply to companies. So companies can still do it.
No. Right. But I don't think that the founding fathers really foresaw what we're experiencing today. They probably thought, hey, the majority, people will revere this. This is what we fought for. This is why we created a country. Now, the fact is that people, especially young people, they're, who get radicalized, not just in college, but really schools in general, they don't revere it anymore. They aren't protecting it anymore. It's the job of the citizens of a country to protect these things, not politicians. The politicians could give two fucks. And when I say the politicians, again, I'm not saying the Democrat. I'm saying both. So the fact of the matter is that when I'm talking about culture and why that is more important than specific policy, it's because the people have the power. And if they don't care to preserve certain things, especially like the First Amendment, then, what the fuck are we doing? Is this even a country anymore?
You're right. I totally agree. I think the First Amendment is extremely important, and it should be applied to private citizens and companies as well. You should be able to say what you want as long as it's not on the job and not be fired for it. It should be illegal to fire someone for their opinion. But what does that have to do with the topic of the debate, like Trump versus Biden? Neither of them are actually doing anything to fix this issue. Trump talks a lot, but he doesn't there are no policies that he's presented to actually fix this. So as far as I can tell, there's no difference in the candidates here they're both just crap. So why would you prefer the Republicans in this case over the Democrats?
Because at least Trump is talking about these things. You mentioned the wall before, and yeah, you're absolutely right. Trump likes to boast that he's built hundreds of miles or whatever. No, they fixed certain things. They didn't build new wall. I agree. But every time Trump has tried to build a wall, which the Democrats used to be for, they're just against everything Trump is. They have blocked him every step of the way because they hate him so much. So it's the same thing with this. He's getting blocked from both sides. When he came in, he had both the House and the Senate. He had Paul Ryan as
majority, right? Super majority,
right? And it's I'm almost glad Mitt Romney and Ryan didn't get in there, because they're not real America First Republicans. They're Democrat light, and meaning they're all kind of the same. And the moment he got in there, he couldn't get shit done even with those guys. So the fact that he's speaking about things, to me, is meaningful. I mean, at least because he's speaking about these things and he's highlighting certain problems. The Democrats really, they're pretty much in bed with the Republicans. So I'm not defending Republicans. And I think that with Trump, we're breeding these kinds of new, if you look at who's been running for Congress and who's been winning their primaries, we're breeding a certain new group. It's like how there was the Tea Party in the 2012. It's like, I don't know what we'd call this. It's maybe America First, where we're breeding new politicians. And granted, they'll probably be susceptible to being corrupted as well. I mean, that's just human nature. We're very flawed. But for me, it's okay. At least these people are talking about it and highlighting certain problems.
I totally agree. I think that talking about these issues is definitely important, but I don't think that's a benefit to being president. Trump can talk about these things and rally support without being president and destroying lots of crap and implementing totalitarian policies and fascistic restrictions of language that he disagrees with and destroying the economy. So I think definitely that's a good thing that he's raising these issues, and he should probably be a public figure, kind of like Black Lives Matter, but on the right side. But I don't think he should be president for this reason, just because he talks about issues that should be improved. I think he should be a public figure, but not president.
Yeah. And okay, I remembered what I was going to say before. Do you think that, for instance, Biden, and he's probably your least favorite guy that ran, you said, do you think that it's even possible for someone to win an election based on not liking the other guy? I mean, I don't think that's really sustainable. And I kind of have a feel like my gut is telling me, I just feel like they're going to replace him before October 1st with someone maybe people can get behind. Like, and I'm just using it as an example. I'm not saying they're going to replace him with her, but Michelle Obama. If they replaced Biden with Michelle Obama, I think Michelle Obama would win the election. I don't think you can win an election without a real base. And I think Trump has a real base.
I mean, yeah, politics right now in America is just who is less bad. That's all of politics. It has nothing to do with who's good or who has the best policies. It's who is less bad, because of the first past the post voting system is designed to make it that way. If you had like something like the single transferable vote system, kind of like in the UK, you could actually vote for politicians who had good ideas rather than who is the less bad politician. So I definitely think that's a bad thing, but it's kind of how politics in America has worked for a while. But I think that they're definitely not going to replace Biden. Biden is the one who, based on all the polls, has the best chance of winning and the best chance of trying to draw some Republican support, because he's an old white dude. And that seems to get a lot more support than women, especially African-American women, or like Bernie Sanders, who's a socialist. Socialism and communism do not poll well in America, even on the Democratic side. So they're going with Biden because he's just the best statistical choice of who generically American people vote for to be president. And they're definitely not going to replace him. They want him because of his policy ideas and because he is the generic president guy. I don't think it's a good thing. I think it's a terrible thing. And I agree that it's not a good thing that we just vote for the lesser evil. And we should definitely change the voting system to make that not an issue anymore, and so that we can actually have third-party candidates. Like the single transferable vote system would be great to implement instead of the first past the post voting system, and that would be a great solution to that problem too.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I would like third-party candidates. I like looking back, I kind of think it was interesting. I mean, he was a billionaire, and that's how he got there. But Ross Perot got like 20 million votes in the popular vote. Yeah, and he was allowed on the debate stage. I think that we should, bring those people in. And then we wouldn't really be having this debate. We wouldn't really be having this conundrum. But like I said, personally, I do like Trump. But I don't think it's possible for someone to win an election based off of not liking the other guy. Hillary Clinton was polling really well also, and pretty much identical to what Biden is. And I don't think that gives us a real clear picture. And Trump, I think, has the base, and I don't think Biden has the base.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean there, because Biden definitely has the base. He's been a politician since he was 30. So he's been a politician for like 50 years now.
Oh, I'm talking about the fans, like the rabid fans, like the fandom.
Yeah, I don't think he has rabid fans, but he definitely has a base of people who trust him as a politician, and that I think is what people are going off of rather than the extremists. Like, because you could put Bernie in there, and he has just as many crazy extremist fans as Trump does, but that's not really what you want from a statistical standpoint. You want the average everyday middle class person to just be like, yeah, I could vote for this guy, and that'll get you more votes than a bunch of extreme rabid fans.
Do you think that the election will be a lot closer than 2016? I mean, that was a pretty close election if you just look at the popular vote. But
I mean, the popular vote, Hillary won by like several million, so it wasn't actually that close. It was a pretty big win for Hillary but the Electoral College completely destroyed her. So all of the polls were actually correct. Hillary won the popular vote, but they didn't take into account how the popular vote would map onto the Electoral College, which is why all of the polls got it wrong. So they were actually right about the popular vote. Hillary did win, but they were wrong about how that would map onto the Electoral College.
I'm very curious. What do you think will happen now?
That's a tough one. So I think the choice of Kamala Harris is probably a really bad choice, which is going to lose him a lot of votes, and it's going to be close. I think that if he picked just another generic white dude, he would have had a lot more chance of winning. He probably would have been in the bag. He probably would have won for sure. But his choice of Kamala Harris was probably a risky one that's going to lose him a lot of swing vote. So it's going to be pretty close.
Do the moderators want to jump in? Can they hear us?
I think so. I think...
I think Catz has disappeared, though. I think Catz has disappeared. You need a breather, guys, there.
Oh no! It's just we're now. It's basically become a conversation.
Yeah, no. Hey, listen, that's exactly what we're all about. That you carry on. If you are happy to keep going, you keep going. We'll tell you when it's time to wind it down. So you carry on, guys.
Well, were there any other cultural things that you thought the Democrats were damaging other than just the free speech thing?
I mean, the anti-cop thing is absolutely insane to me. I don't think that that's sustainable, and that's coming a lot from the BLM people, and it's having a real impact. Like was it that the Milwaukee police is disbanding, and then a lot of
Minneapolis, where I live.
Minneapolis, sorry, yeah, and I think Seattle is getting defunded. NYPD are getting defunded. Eric Garcetti
I think they're not getting defunded. They're just getting refunded. So they're taking some of the funding away from those and reapplying them to different social programs. So they're not actually defunding those ones. Only the Minneapolis people are crazy enough to completely get rid of the police.
But that to me that it's like dominoes falling. I feel like the fact that that's even a conversation right now, to me, is a little bit amazing. It's a little scary. Look, like I said, I live in California, in Los Angeles. I've been living here for 11 years, and I've seen such a drastic change. Cost of living has gone up. The homelessness problem is getting worse. The drug problem is getting worse. And right now it's like, for me, fight or flight. I'm planning on getting out of here and moving somewhere like Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. Just because of what I've seen this with my own eyes, what's happening, not just on the internet, not just on TV. You know what I mean? Like in real life, I've seen what has been happening. It's a little question
about the police thing. Do you think the police are over militarized and overfunded, and that it could be a good thing to cut back their funding and put those funding into social programs to do what cops are doing right now? Because cops right now, only about 4% of police interactions are about violent interactions. Many of the things have to do with mental health. People call cops on for mental health reasons, and that could be taken care of by someone who isn't a cop. Like social workers could do that job better than cops could. You don't need a guy with a gun for that. And so taking the funding that goes to cops and putting it into social health workers for them to take care of the issue seems like it would be beneficial, not a bad thing. So in the context of appropriately refinancing the cops and taking away the over militarization and using that funding into social programs that can do the jobs better in those particular cases that the cops are supposed to do right now, don't you think that would be a good thing? And in that's like what's going on in Seattle and those other places where they're just restructuring the funding to get social workers to do the jobs that cops are right now doing, but you don't actually need cops for.
I don't know. I think that we're kind of playing with a loaded gun right now. Things are escalating at such a rapid rate that I don't even know if that's the correct thing. The fact that riots and looting and all that has become hyper normalized in such a short amount of time, to me, is very, very worrisome.
What do you mean hyper normalized?
Like it's happening at such a regular. It's so regular now, where before it was like once every 5 years there would be something. And it would just kind of be there. Ferguson, it would just be in Ferguson, for instance, and it wouldn't bleed across the country. And I think that also has to do with the where social media has the amount of power social media has and how quickly things can travel and influence people.
Well, because just to clarify, like there's been about 1,000 protests or several thousand protests in the United States, and only about a dozen or several dozen have led to looting. So it doesn't seem to be like a widespread problem. It just seems to be like the amount of protests that have happened, just because there's so many more of them, have also had many more violent ones. And those are the ones, because the media only care about sensationalism, they only talk about those violent ones.
No,
the
sure,
vast
but
majority have not been violent. So it doesn't see, I don't see this as like a wide scale problem for looting. I just say there's a couple of them that do looting, and those are the ones the media focus on. But I don't think it's like increasing in popularity or acceptability that people are doing looting. It's just the nature of the fact there's been that many more protests.
Can I ask a question on that bit? And again, tell me to bog off if I'm completely wrong. But we were talking before about the virtual signaling from the politicians and how that can, regardless of legislation, create a culture. Do you think that virtue signaling around some sensitive issues lately may have led to that increased number of riots?
No, I don't think so. Because I think, again, there hasn't really been an increased number of riots. There's just been an increased number of protests. And so the violent number of protests is about the same. Like you get 100 protests, a few of them are going to be violent. But now we've had like 2,000 protests, so several dozen of them are violent. It's not really an increase in the amount of violence. It's just an increase in the amount of protests. So there hasn't really been an increase in the violence at all. It's just an increase in the number of protests, which has had the same proportional amount of violence to it. The vast majority of them have been nonviolent. So I don't think it's the politicians doing the virtue signaling that is causing this. It's mostly the media. The media spreading these ideas because it gets people engaged emotionally is what is causing the massive increase in the amount of protests. So I don't really think it's the virtue signaling of the politicians that is causing this. They're just trying to capitalize on the emotional engagement of the people behind these kinds of ideas because
it's already been created by the media.
Yeah.
So the media created it.
The media. I agree. The media is way more influential than politicians. Although politicians do bend the knee and virtue signal and all of that, I think people will pay attention to the media more. Also, they're inundated by the media way more than the politicians are not really in the daily lives of people. It's really the media for sure. It was funny because I briefly was watching CNN last night. I wanted to see what they were talking about.
Why would you do that?
I just wanted to see. I don't know. Wait. So, and Don Lemon said he basically disavowed the rioting and looting because in this you have to find this. He said because it's not polling well. He didn't say because it's bad and it's ruining people's lives and businesses and neighborhoods and everything. He said because it doesn't poll well. I think that's really evil. And the fact that he's so comfortable saying that, it's like a Twilight Zone episode.
Well, I think he wasn't saying that the fact it was destroying people's lives was a good thing. I think he was just specifically saying that in the context of the upcoming election, because that's what they were talking about. And he was saying, what are the impacts on the election right now? And the rioting has this impact on the election. I don't think he was actually condoning the destruction of the lives. I think it was
that's the optics wise. That's kind of what I got from it. You're probably right. I don't think that he's sitting there like, yes, we want rioting. We like this, but it's just a bizarre framing of events. But yeah, but I still think that we haven't even begun to see the amount of, we haven't hit the tipping point of rioting and looting and all that. I think that it's going to happen at a more frequent rate. I think that the fact that people are kind of getting away with it for the most part, and a lot of the mayors in these towns are telling cops to stand down, and so on. I think that that's kind of signaling that law enforcement has no power. They're kind of just there, in the background for now, and it's kind of being okayed, I think. But I do think that whenever something in the future happens that people don't like, look, I do think Trump will win, and I think that when he wins, I think rioting and looting will happen. Like, I think November 4th or November 3rd at night is not going to be a fun time for anyone.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's going to, whichever way the results go in this debate, it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of crazy stuff is going to happen. But from my position, I still think the policies Donald Trump is implementing that are just destroying the economy, that are rupturing the ecosystem, that are destroying people's lives and just overexpending and using the corrupt politician to expand the strength of the executive branch to do things that it shouldn't be able to do, using the federal funds to build a wall instead of helping build schools or whatever. All of the things he's doing are just so straight up fascist, exactly the same as China does. Just that is a bigger concern to me than rioting, because the rioting is such a small thing when you compare it to the amount of damage done by Trump's policies to the economy, to the environment, to schools and education, healthcare. Like 2 million more people are now off health insurance. That's a bigger deal than 24 or so riots that have led to a few thousand companies going out of business. Like the millions of people who have lost health insurance, that's a big deal. The millions of dollars that have been taken out of health insurance, that's a big deal. The rioting and looting is kind of like, yeah, but here are these bigger issues we really need to focus on. Kind of like how you mentioned Black Lives Matter focusing on the violence of police isn't really the biggest issue affecting the black communities. Focusing on the war on drugs or the getting rid of private prisons or getting rid of corruption in politics, those are really big issues definitely affecting the black community. That's what they should be focusing on. And so it's a mistake to focus on the smaller issues like protests. And for the same reason, it's the mistake to focus on those in the case of politics, because we should be focusing on the bigger issues that Trump is dismantling, like those exact same ones I mentioned. So for the same reason you don't support BLM, I don't support Trump, because the bigger issues are what's important here, not the rioting and looting, which is only really a minority issue.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think it's been a good conversation. I think we covered pretty much all the big topics.
Now might be a good time to jump to the questions, Creaky. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a few people in the side chat having their own debate.
Ron Paul 2012 9/11 inside job.
Yeah, and Mr. Steve thinks that Tjump and Josh should team up and run America.
Or what?
You should team up and run the country.
Just write us
It would
in
be
the
good
president.
because we don't really agree. So the checks and balances right there, you know?
Yeah. Well, we do agree on a lot of stuff. We just get rid of all the spending, decrease the military organized complex, get rid of, take our military out of other seas. Yeah, we'd probably do a lot of good.
I'm all for that, yeah.
So are you guys happy to jump straight into the questions? We'll cover the super chatted questions first, and then we'll go to the community tab.
Sounds good to me.
So the first one comes in from JL Warren. It's $9.99 US. Thank you, JL Warren. Would you agree that merely because you have to exchange, because you have an exchange in Trump apologetics, it gives credence to the claim that his behavior is socially and presidentially unacceptable?
Who's that? Who is that to?
He didn't specify.
Oh, okay, you can go first.
I mean, if the topic of the debate was specifically about Trump's unacceptable behavior, then I guess so. But I mean, not really, because people have debates on flat Earth. That doesn't necessarily lend credence to the fact the world is flat. So I don't think so. I think it's totally fine to have debates on a topic. That doesn't necessarily mean one side or the other is given credence that it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I didn't get. I didn't hear the full question.
Do you want me to go through it again for you, Josh?
Yeah.
Would you agree that merely because you have to engage in Trump apologetics, it gives credence to the claims that his behavior is socially and presidentially unacceptable?
I don't understand that question.
He's asking, like, the fact that you have to defend all the stupid stuff Trump has done, isn't that evidence that Trump has done a lot of stupid stuff?
No, I mean, but I don't agree with everything he's done, and I don't think everything he says or does is stupid. I don't know. I don't really fully.
Okay, no problem. We'll move on to the next question. The next question.
Sorry for the $9.80.
Yeah, no, it's fine. The next question comes in from Dildo Baggins. It's $2 US. What is your view on US immigrants into the UK?
Wouldn't that be for you two? Because we're in the U.S. Because he wants U.S. immigrants into the U.K. Like
we're moderators. We must refrain from having an opinion.
I don't. Would you guys like it if we just send you a bunch of Americans? We'll just send up some Americans to the UK, just invade the UK.
Is that even happening?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be for Americans going to the UK. I'm for immigration, especially merit-based immigration.
Yeah, I just don't see that's happening. It's funny when people threaten to leave the country when so-and-so wins the White House, and they just never leave. And they always say, like, Canada. They never say Mexico. They never say they're going to move to Mexico. I don't understand why. But they never leave. So is it happening? It seems like everyone wants to come here.
Well, it is actually happening. I think there have been several thousand people, at least, who have moved to Canada since Donald Trump's election. Simply
not Mexico. What about Mexico?
I don't know. I know there's actually have been a number of people who've moved to Africa specifically.
Whoa.
Because of Trump's election.
Yeah, there's always going to be a few outliers, but most people say they're going to do something like that and they never do it. Just fucking do it.
Yeah, most people
tear up your U.S. passport and do it.
Yeah, most people are all talk. They're not actually going to do it.
Yeah. People are generally quite good at making empty threats, aren't they? That they refuse to act on when it comes down to it. So
especially celebrities.
Yeah. Next one is another super chat, $4.99, again from JL Warren. Each speaker's position on ranked choice voting over our current plurality electoral system.
Yes. Ranked choice is very similar to the single transferable vote, where you set like a number. I like this person first, this person second, this person third. And if the first person isn't in the top two, then your vote will be transferred to the next person you voted for, like your second favorite. So in that system, everyone's vote is counted. Everyone's vote will be towards one of the two primary candidates. Whereas right now, if you vote for a third-party candidate and that third-party candidate isn't in the top two, well, then your vote is just thrown out. It's not going to get counted in the election at all. So the ranked choice and single transferable vote system allows you to vote for who you really want first. And if that person doesn't get elected by the majority, then your vote will be transferred to the next person, which allows you to vote for third-party candidates. Whereas right now, if you do it, your vote just gets thrown away, which is a really terrible system.
Yeah, that I don't know much about that, but it seems like that's a good system. And that's coming from before Trump. I have voted third party. I won't say for who, and it's really pointless. So I'd rather something else, you know.
Okay, on to the next one. Thank you to Jim Broughton for becoming a channel member. And the next question is from Bacon Earth. It's a £2 super chat. Well, no, it's not a question, it's a statement. JL Warren versus Zercube. Next question is from Brian Craig. Where do you guys think being racist actually comes from?
That depends on what he means. Like, do you mean like the origin of racism as through evolution?
I don't know. The question is exactly as I read it. Where do you guys think being racist comes from?
Yeah, I just say origins of evolution and differences in grouping.
Yeah, so it's a very open-ended question, that, isn't it? To be fair.
Yeah, we're tribal. Humans are tribal. I think that's kind of where it comes from. The biggest tribes when we were evolving were like 200 people, right?
At some point.
Yeah. So it has to come from there. I mean, and kind of like a form of self-preservation back then. It's ingrained in us in that sense, you know. I think
same as chimpanzees, where you have in-group, out-group, and
you
kill the out-group when they're in your territory. That's
or wolves with wolf packs.
Right, that's all the super chatted questions. Katz, do you want to have a crack at one of the community tab questions?
I will do, and because you got to read out Dildo Baggins, I'm going to read out another regular.
You're going to steal my favourite name, aren't you?
I'm going to do, because I wanted to read out Dildo Baggins. I'm going to do it. Josh, this is a question for you. Okay, check this out for username. Craving More Dick says, Josh said, it's great, isn't it? Craving More Dick. I love it. So mature. Josh says he's registered independent. Can you clarify independent or non-partisan, because there is a difference?
Is there a difference? I just didn't want to be affiliated with any party.
I don't know.
I don't know if you can actually register as a nonpartisan. I guess you can.
Can you? I chose independent just because I didn't want to be a part of. The independent is not a party. Is it?
Yeah, I think it is. I think there is an independent party, whereas nonpartisan is just saying I hate all politics, just being a political nihilist.
Well, I'm not a full nihilist, but no, I chose independent because I was under the assumption that there was no party affiliation. Maybe I'll change it.
I think there is. I think there is.
Oh,
actually.
Great. So maybe I'll just change it.
But go on, Creaky. He did ask another question, so I'll let you read that one out.
Right, okay. A question from Craving More Dick, because I think it sounds much funnier when I say it. Question for both debaters. Oh, that's a stupid bloody question. No wonder you wanted me to read it out. Why do you think that? That's the question.
Oh, why do you think that?
Cat has sabotaged me.
What was his last question?
Why do you think that?
No, the one before that, because the answer.
Right.
The two aren't linked.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I get it now. Sorry, I'm still stressed out from the beginning of this stream. It's a follow up to your answers to the first question. Then, so whatever you just answered, he's asking why do you think that way?
Why are you an independent as opposed to a nonpartisan, or why are you a nonpartisan as opposed to an independent?
Oh, at this point, I've got absolutely no idea.
He might have just been trolling us.
He might well have been.
I think he meant like everything we just said.
Yeah.
Like throughout the last hour. Yeah. Why do you think that?
Yeah.
And the answer, I have an answer. Because.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with 42. 42 is the answer.
I have, it's that Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I have that tattooed on me.
Okay, next one. Tiffany Hall. It's a question for you, Josh. Please explain how all of the fact-checked lies Trump has told is acceptable behavior for a POTUS. So I assume POTUS means President of the United States?
Of the United States, yep.
How the fact-check lies? I'm always a little dubious when it comes to these companies like Snopes. Like Snopes fact-checked, or like I love on Facebook or Instagram how if you post anything coronavirus related, they put a warning in front of it that this was fact-checked and it's not true. Who are the fact-checkers? I'm always very curious as to who these people are, because if it's not some sort of supercomputer algorithm that made itself, it's going to be biased. So that being said, I don't trust the fact checkers, and I'm talking about in general. I'm not talking about a specific thing that was said here. I'm talking about in general. I don't trust it. And what was the first part before that?
What was it? Oh crap! So I was just trying.
Was there something about not being presidential?
Oh yeah. So how are all the fact check lies acceptable behavior?
I mean, look. The funny thing about politics is we're dealing with people who their job is to lie, and I'm not saying that that's acceptable behavior, but if you pay attention to politics, you've been lied to by virtually everyone. There's not an honest politician. It's not that's by definition there's no such thing. So and I'm not excusing anyone for lying or giving Trump a pass if he's ever lied about anything. But that's just how it is, and you have to when you pay attention to politics, and especially if you kind of treat it as a sport, you have to pretty much accept that as the case.
Well, I agree that most politicians are liars, but yeah, Trump has lied a ton, just factually lied, like saying there was a big surge in New Zealand's coronavirus. That's just a lie. It just hasn't happened. Or saying that Democrats have intentionally been rolling out blackouts in California. It's just, no, that's not how it works. So he has literally just lied on Twitter. And yeah, politicians lie about a lot of stuff, but usually it's not just factual, incorrect statements. It's usually veiled kind of stuff to promote a political narrative. Trump has just literally lied about facts, and that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, with regards to those specific things, it's it's kind of like this New York attitude with the people from New York. Like they kind of exaggerate certain things, and that's kind of their language. And it's also the context, really, usually when it comes to these people. I'm not. By the way, I'm not. What is that?
What?
What is that thing?
This is a camera lens. It goes on.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like a weird vape thing. But yeah, like I said, there are things that he's done that I don't like. But with those little things, I think there's you have to take things with a grain of salt in it, and there also has to we have to pay attention to context and how he says certain things. He's different than every other politician because to me he's just this guy from New York that doesn't fit in with the billionaires. He fits in with more of this kind of a blue collar type of people where it's just how they talk. So sorry to be so broad about him, but he he's completely different.
Cool. Creaky, how are we doing these questions? Are we alternating?
Yeah, okay. The next one's from Tiffany Hall as well, and it's for Josh. She wants to know what your thoughts are on QAnon.
I think QAnon is astrology for old Republican women. I don't think it's. That's another thing where there are probably kernels of truth in certain things that they talk about, but I don't think that Trump or someone in the Trump administration is leaking information that foresees the future or is kind of giving us an inside scoop on what's actually happening. I think that it's fake for the most part. Would you agree with me?
Yeah,
Tjump?
QAnon is essentially just I forget what the guy's name was. The Turn the Frogs gay guy.
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones. QAnon is just Alex Jones, but with lots more people talking.
It seems like fantasy politics. Like,
there's
conspiracy
fantasy theory. It's all conspiracy theory, lizard people, like government chemtrails. It's crazy conspiracy theories, flat earth level stuff.
Okay, Glenn Pearson says, this is to both of you. Do you think our world leaders should be held accountable for their words and actions, or do their words not matter? Tjump, go to you first for that one.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think they definitely should. But most of their words, like I don't think we should imprison Trump because he said a lot of stupid factual things. I think we should definitely fact check him, and we should have a fact checker. Like every time he speaks, there should be like a fact checker in the bottom right-hand corner saying this is false, here's why. But I don't think we should like throw him in prison just because he's stupid. I don't think that's correct.
Josh?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't like. What would the consequences be? It's kind of vague. I agree with Tjump. Although the fact checking thing, again, it's kind of like Snopes. It could just be manipulated or skewed a certain way. I think it's interesting that we live in an age where we could trade information like this, and there's always pros and cons to it. That's exactly how you have something like QAnon gain popularity and all that. But the real question, I think, is do the positives outweigh the negatives of the amount of information that we're able to consume? I actually don't really know the answer to that. Because when we go look back, so when I mentioned the 80s earlier, I was born in 86, and I grew up with consuming content from the 80s. So it's almost like since I had a good childhood, I have like a nostalgic viewpoint of the 80s, and I just feel like we were better off kind of not really being so inundated with all these things, so I honestly actually I don't know, like, are we better off with all this information and how fast it moves?
It's a good point. Good point. Creaky,
the next one is from Clive Wells. What are the candidates' positions on whether churches and other religious organisations should lose their tax-exempt status? Should the state be financially supporting such organisations in this way?
No, they should not. Trump actually tried to pass a bill that repealed the Johnson Amendment so that churches would no longer have their tax, or they would still be tax exempt, but they would be able to take political sides. And that is terrible. Like the whole separation between church and state thing was the foundation of the founding fathers for a very good reason. Taking that away is a terrible idea. I'd be for taking away both and let them take a political stance and pay taxes, but not have them not pay taxes and be able to have a political stance. That's not okay. It's completely bad, unless you're a Republican, because then you get a lot more votes.
But I don't really know the policies from either side with regards to that. But don't churches on both sides, I've seen videos of people give speeches in churches and have don't they have politicians regularly on both sides? Didn't Cory Booker give a speech at a church during the election? A lot of politicians have, and again, on both sides, that's a common occurrence. And also, don't churches already kind of preach politics? I feel like they already do. Is that what you're talking about? Because I feel like they already do that.
No, that's illegal. That's the Johnson Amendment. So if you can rent a church to use it for public lecturing purposes, that's fine. But a church can't promote, like a pastor can't promote a particular candidate unless they're paying taxes outside of their church thing. So if they're actually a non-profit church organization who's not paying taxes, it's illegal for them to say anything about a political candidate one way or the other, or they will lose their tax exempt status or be sued. So they can't do that legally.
Oh, okay. So when politicians in the past have gone to churches, that's typically they rented out the church, and then
Probably.
Oh, okay. I'm not well versed in that question at all.
Yeah, or it could just be a church that does pay taxes and try to exempt itself from the Johnson Amendment.
All right.
Okay, we've got one from M from MI6, who says, I think this is for you, Josh. If current Trump support states that voting on Biden is making the US fall into chaos and socialism, isn't voting for Trump letting it keep sinking into chaos and fascism?
Is that because of the current events that are happening right now?
That was just it word for word. Not sure.
Yeah, when pre-corona, which I think has been way overblown, and I think that a lot of states are kind of using it to their advantage to kind of have a negative impact on the economy and keeping things closed. I think that's all unconstitutional. I think that's all horrible. But pre-corona, I was very worried. I thought to myself, oh shit, Trump is the incumbent, and whatever side you're on, it did seem like he was on a roll. And I thought people aren't going to feel like they need to go out and vote for him because they'll think he has it in the bag. And then all of these things started to happen. The coronavirus, the shutting down of businesses, telling us it's only 14 days to bend the curve. And then it basically just became like 6 months already. And then we had the rioting, the BLM stuff, all of that. I think that is now, again, you might call me a conspiracy theorist, but if you kind of look into it a little bit more, I think that those tactics are by design. It's divide and conquer. It's an old tactic that's been used forever. And I don't think that those are necessarily Trump's doing. The reason why states were allowed to close certain things and keep them closed was because Trump said the states should kind of choose how they handle their shit. I mean, that's why we have states to begin with. But I think that they saw it as an opportunity to use it against him. And the BLM thing is it was like a 1-2 punch, So sure, maybe the rioting isn't widespread across the whole country, but optics wise, it is used against him. And then you can call him a fascist for sending in the police or whatever. But I mean, I don't know how restoring order is fascism. We're not disappearing people. We're not putting people in jail forever without having a fair trial or anything like that. So I think that a lot of the events from the past 6 months or so are politically motivated and overblown also. In the beginning, for instance, with coronavirus, which we really haven't talked about, in the beginning, I was all for it. I was like, we don't know the severity of this. And then we realized the death rates aren't relatively high. I mean, yes, they're higher than a country like Japan, but Japan has a obesity rate of, I think, 6 or 9%. We have an obesity rate of 40%. Maybe if we were talking about a real epidemic, maybe it would be the obesity epidemic. And maybe that's why we wouldn't have so many deaths. but it doesn't warrant shutting down the whole country and thus creating chaos. I think that's kind of what they were referring to. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, that's what I have to say.
Cool. Next, is it me or you, Creaky?
It's me. The next one is from Pete Bremble. It's a question for Josh again. Why do you think closed borders are a good thing? The UK is so multicultural. It's amazing being able to interact with people from different cultures. We are one world.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like globalism to me. And I think that in order to have, like, we have a problem in the United States right now with opioids. And I think that Tjump would agree with me that we should throw the Sackler family in prison. I think that they are horrible, and they told people that opioids, that Oxycontin and oxytocin were not addictive. They are.
Oxycodone. Oxytocin is a chemical.
No, yeah. Sorry. But I think that there's something to be said about social cohesion, letting people in on a merit-based system. I think that, talking about Europe and talking about Great Britain, it's kind of funny because it seems like people there are like that person asked the question. They're completely ignoring there's a grooming gang rape problem with children. Their stabbings have gone through the roof, and it's mostly one demographic doing those things. I don't think open borders works. I think that, you need to preserve your culture. What's amazing to me about Europe pre the like if we just go back to what's it called, the European Union, pre-European Union, is that all these countries that are very close to one another, and they're relatively small countries, they all have their different cultures. Like when I was 13, I went to Switzerland. I was astonished at how different even the subsections in Switzerland were from one another. I mean, the main language in that country is five languages, or four, and then one minority one. I think that these are things worth preserving. Again, I'm not saying complete closed borders and don't let anyone in ever. I think that there needs to be a merit-based system, and if these first world countries fall, first world countries are pretty much what create the technology and medicine and everything that the rest of the world gets to enjoy. If all these countries fall, then we're all kind of fucked. I used to not really think about borders as much. I used to not really think it was that big of a deal, but the more people we let into a country that don't have time to adapt and don't have time to assimilate, then again, the question is, what is a country? Is it just a name? Is it just the flag, which is a logo? Is it just that? Or is there something to be said about social cohesion and assimilation? Oh, and the reason why I mentioned the Sackler family and the opioid epidemic is because when a country loses its ethos and identity, it seems like, and definitely when they ship their jobs away to China, it seems like people kind of lose meaning in life. We gain a lot of our meaning in life through the work we do, and I think that when people kind of lose that aspect of their lives, they kind of succumb to certain things like that, and we should throw the Sacklers in jail. They're evil. Wait, you're we can't
I'm
hear
muted,
you.
aren't I?
Yeah.
And what I said was so profound as well. We've got a super chat here which is clearing up the question before, the question about why are people racist, or and I think it's from Brian Craig, and he said, to be specific, why do you think somebody does something racist to somebody else? I think that's what he was getting at.
We'll give it to Tjump because I spoke too much.
Yeah, racism is just an in-group, out-group bias, and so you make a judgment about another person about a superficial attribute that's different from them, and then you would try to hurt them in some way because you want to damage that competing ideology. So the psychological influences of racism are also seen in like your favorite sports team, where you have a rivalry between sports teams and you hate each other. It's the exact same psychology that's been being measured between those two things. It's just an in-group, out-group bias, and it can be any in-group, out-group. Like in high school, you have the nerds versus the jocks. It's the exact same mentality. The only difference being is when you're adults, you usually have access to guns and can hurt people, and that's usually a significantly greater risk involved when you're in a big group of people who all have share those same ideologies. So it's just general in-group, out-group bias that's a part of human nature, that's been a part of human nature since the dawn of time.
I have nothing to add.
Creaky?
I think it's Call of the Void is the next question. Sorry, Josh. As Kamala Harris family owned slaves in the past, does she owe herself reparations?
No. It's as simple as that. No. Also, I don't think that we should condemn her for the sins of her family's past. I don't think that has anything to do with who she is as a person. We should judge her on how she acts as a politician and what she does now, like anyone else. That's why I don't think reparations work for anyone. Also, would I have to give reparations? I'm basically first-generation American. We're Jewish. My family's completely Jewish. We came from Russia and Eastern Europe. Do I owe black people money? I mean, I don't think I do. So no, no, she does. That was a funny question, but no.
Cool. Arto Rissanen. What do you guys think about the vice presidential nominees? Harris will kick Pence's butt, in my opinion, or in his opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think intellectually, Harris probably is a lot more intellectually fluent and can be able to talk more and bring up more interesting points than Pence. But just, I mean, given the biases of people, especially in the American electorate, about who they're going to vote for, they're probably going to vote more Pence type. Old white dude is usually always preferred in American polls and elections than especially African Americans or women. Like it's I definitely think that just given the biases of most people in America, Pence was probably going to take the lead simply for that reason, regardless of his inadequacies in debate.
Yeah, I don't know. Pence, I've probably heard him speak as many times as I've heard Mueller speak. He's so in the background of things. I have no idea. But if we just talk about the cadence of someone's voice, Kamala, is it Kamala or whatever? Kamala Harris. She sounds like she nags. You know, like I'm not talking about what she believes or anything. Just if you close your eyes, you don't even pay attention to what they're saying. Her voice just kind of might turn people off. So, and I think that we are so superficial as humans. I think that's kind of what deep down we'll focus on rather than what is actually being said. So yeah, she kind of sounds annoying.
Right, I think we are at our deadline because we usually go to 9 and then cut it dead. Creaky, should we end on Tati Bogle's question?
Yeah, okay.
Do you want to? I don't know who it is. Do you want to fire it out?
Yeah, fine. Would it be fair to postulate the US elections are personality competitions and not anything more substantive, like, for example, political policies?
Yeah, I compare it to like a teenage pageant, more or less. It has nothing to do with policies. No one actually cares. No one looks at the policies. It's all just build the wall, put her in, lock her up. It's just a pageant, nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, ever since the advent of television, that's kind of what it's the road it started to take. JFK debated Nixon, right? And he just looked better. Nixon looked all sweaty on TV, and people gravitated more towards Kennedy. Also, Kennedy was probably a better speaker. That's why, regardless of side, I always find it. I get so annoyed when celebrities like Cardi B say anything about, like, she interviewed Biden. They scrubbed that from the internet. She interviewed Biden last week. And it's like, who the fuck cares what Cardi B has to say? She is retarded. And I'm not saying that as like to disparage her. I genuinely think she is retarded. that's basic. I think that fewer people should vote on both sides. Like I said, I used to be a policy junkie. I loved it. And I would talk to people about healthcare and all these things. And that's what we would debate on. But now that's not what anything is about anymore. Have we reached the bottom? I think maybe we have, but I don't know. And maybe we can go lower. But I think that it's sad when we have these celebrities encourage people to go out and vote and register to vote and all that. But no, I want fewer people. I want political junkies on both sides to vote, and that's it. Like, I want the nerds to vote, the people who live and breathe this to vote. Not I always equate it to the Olympics. I'm not going to pretend every 4 years that I care about javelin. I don't even know what that is. I just know it's in the Olympics. Like, I just don't care. So we have people pop in every 4 years, and they really, it's a form of virtue signaling. They pretend. They really, really pretend, especially on their social media, that they care. And then they dip out. Then they're not there anymore. They show up again 4 years later, but they're really not there. So I think that in order to fix it, we should discourage people from voting. I think that the more stupid people that vote, the more our vote gets diluted.
I've got to admit, when it comes to the Brexit vote here, I didn't vote because I took advice from people that I respected on both sides of the argument. You know, people in positions that, I really, really respected both of them, and they both had completely contrasting arguments. And I thought, if they can't even agree on it, I haven't got a clue. And I thought, any vote I make is going to be a guess. And I think, well, how many people like me just guessed? How many people like me just...
I respect that. No, I fully respect that. I like stupid people who, and I'm not saying you're not stupid. You're just not. No. That's not what I'm saying. You're just not paying it. No. You just don't. This is not what you're. This I'm saying in general. Aside from this, and aside from politics in general, I enjoy the company of a stupid person who isn't trying to impress me and pretend that they're not. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that in a negative way. Like most people aren't vastly impressive. Most people aren't Steve Jobs. I invited these friends to Costa Rica. My family has a farm in Costa Rica. I invited friends this past Christmas, and I invited too many people accidentally because I just assumed half of them would say no, but they ended up all coming. And these are like very, very high IQ, impressive people. I felt so fucking stupid that whenever they spoke, I didn't even chime in. I didn't even add to the conversation. Like, these are big time nerds, people who work for Peter Thiel, like those kinds of people. And so I kind of took a step back and just paid attention to what they had to say. I didn't add anything to it. I was almost in awe of how smart they were. And I think I added. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Quickly, there was one more super chat flew in then while.
From Brian Craig, $5. Cardi B comes from the minority population and asks questions that concern her fans, and her personally, people that vote. So that's not really a question, more of a statement. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
There we go.
Well, I mean, I have nothing. I have nothing to add with regards to wet ass pussy, Cardi B.
I did want to mention one thing. You said that we couldn't go any worse or any lower. I mean, we could definitely go Kanye in the birthday party. We can definitely get lower.
Dude, can I tell you something? This is going to live on YouTube. I do think that if he ran seriously in 2024, I do think he can win. And that's not, I'm not saying that he should or shouldn't, or I agree with him or anything. I'm just saying that's where we are, and I think he could win in 2024 if he actually ran.
Nothing would surprise me. Everybody's vote counts equal, doesn't it? And, I suppose like a highly trained economics expert has one vote, and so does a Kanye West fan. So, and they both count equally, don't they?
Did you guys know Kanye was actually planning to run for president? He actually posted himself on the ballot, and for the birthday party, that was his party. Instead of independent or Republican, he went for the birthday party as the name of his party.
Well, isn't he on like 8 ballots? Isn't he going to be on like 8 or 13 ballots? I think.
Oh, I think he dropped out. I think he dropped out like a few weeks after he did it. But
no. Like, go look now though. I think he's going to appear on like 8 or 13 ballots or something. I'm just you have to go look it up because I think that's what's happening.
Well, Glenn Pearson says in the side chat that if Kanye West becomes president, he's moving in with me. So luckily for him, I have got a spare room. So
there you go.
Oh, dear me. Right. Well, guys, thank you. So, like I said at the beginning, I knew nothing about politics. I know a little bit more than I did now you started, but like I'm so glad that you two were having that debate and I wasn't involved. It was fascinating to listen to, but yeah, definitely not my field at all, but really enjoyed it. You've both been ultra articulate, ultra civil, ultra polite. Again, just taking on what this channel's all about. So I really want to extend a massive thanks to both of you. Before I go, and I pass you to Creaky, I'm just going to link Josh, your podcast, and Tjump, your channel, in the description one more time. While I'm doing that, feel free just to tell people what they're about, and then Creaky can see us out.
Yeah, I just I do a show called Wrong Opinion 2 to 3 times a week. I cover current events and culture and pop culture, politics, all of that. And yeah, just check it out. It's on Patreon, Wrong Opinion. Also, Tjump, nice to meet you. This was fun. I had a really good time.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. It was an enjoyable conversation. Unlike my last debate on Trump, which was not an enjoyable conversation. But yeah, so I do YouTube channel, youtube.com/tjump, where I debate usually professors and philosophers on different topics, usually the existence of God, flat earth, creationism, science, philosophy, that kind of stuff. Check it out. Please give me money. I need money. This is my full-time job. Sad face.
Right. Well, guys, honestly, both of you, I mean, I'll let Creaky see you out, but I really appreciate what you've done tonight. So thank you very much. And I'll shut up now and pass you on to Creaky.
Yeah, no, I will agree. It was a really interesting conversation, and it did stay within the sort of the confines we've put on this channel to keep it respectful and keep it friendly. And so far, we haven't had anyone go against that. So thank you very much to both the guys. Thank you to everybody who's stuck around for the entire stream. If for some bizarre reason you're not subscribed, don't forget to do it now. Turn on bell notifications, and we're out here. Take care, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.